years. Bit of a different venue here today, but Tegan and I, we finally got hitched and we are honeymooning in a northern lodge right now. And basically boredom struck, and it's been 1 year that we've been living in the off-grid house. So we gathered a whole bunch of questions that people have asked us over time and people online and whatnot, and figured that we would do a nice little Q&A to kind of summarize some of the big questions that we get about the house build and being off-grid and what it's like and things like that. Question number 1. Who designed our home and did all the drawings for it? So a lot of people don't know, but that was Tegan. So Tegan is, what's your professional job title?
Designer estimator.
Designer. You're an architectural engineering technologist is what you are. She always says it really lame. But basically, like, what do you do for work?
I draw plans for cabins and stuff around
cottage country. Lots of big custom, fancy, way fancier than our stuff.
And stuff. So I mean, I knew what to do to make ours not as fancy and expensive as a build as
make it
some
reasonable.
of the really custom ones that people build. But
yeah,
we figured out what would work best for our lifestyle and what we needed and stuff, and then made it.
It was a 5-year process. We spent 5 years of evenings and weekends going through it.
With COVID and stuff, with, when should we start building and saving money and stuff. So the drawings themselves, I mean, revisions and stuff, just with us tweaking them and over the years, but it doesn't take that long to get that done.
But a lot of it was because Tegan can do everything in 3D space. So essentially we could walk through the whole house in VR and we could see exactly where we wanted things to be. And I know I'd come home from work and I would tell you like, hey, where does the toaster go? Where does the extra toilet paper go? And I would just list off all these random things that have to go in the house. And she would either already have a spot set aside for that, known already, or she would go, oh, I didn't think about that. And then in 3D space, she would make that item and then place it in the house. And then we could see exactly on our floor plan and square footage and everything kind of what we needed, what we wanted, what was going to work, what was going to be affordable, all that kind of stuff. And a lot of it too was we started to understand that we were going to become off-grid, or we'd have to build off-grid. So that changed a lot of our design stuff too, which we'll touch later on here. But this kind of puts us into the next question, which is, did the house match our original designs and our original plans in the end? So basically from what we had drawn and designed to what we ended up with. Is that similar? Is it the exact same? What exactly it ended up as? And the answer is yes and no. So from the main floor up, everything is exactly to the 1/4 inch or 1/8 of an inch, exactly what Tegan drew. Like it's exact. It's phenomenal. You look at the 3D model and the what do you call it? The fancy outside views when you're looking at it. Elevations. So you look at that stuff, and it's like side by side. You can see it's just amazing. The part that didn't turn out how we expected it or designed it to was the crawl space area, or kind of the basement.
Wow. Yeah, working on bedrock, and you don't know exactly the elevation unless you get a survey with the GPS elevations of the rock and the profile of it. We weren't sure exactly how high our crawl space kind of would be, so we went a lot taller to get in our utility stuff, more or less. That's the big
we thought that we'd be building right tight against the bedrock, and that we wouldn't have room underneath the house for storage of extra decorations and winter summer clothes and all the kind of
the big thing
stuff.
Is trying to fit in the utilities, especially when we had to go solar. We had
batteries
to get
and
room for all that equipment and stuff.
And then once we decided that we weren't going to do a well, we were going to do a water tank underneath there. So we have a 2,000 gallon water tank we had to fit underneath. So essentially we went from what we thought was going to be maybe 2 to 4, 5 feet of height in the crawl space with the rock tipping down. We ended up with being about 3 to 4 feet at the low end, and we're upwards of 7 feet on the tall end. So the whole house went taller in order to fit. The main thing was our water tank underneath there, because the water tank dimensions are about 4.5 feet tall, 12 feet long, and 8 feet wide. So a 2,000 gallon tank. And by the time we did that, and you need space for your pumps and yada, 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 we said, okay, let's go to 7 feet so we have a full standard walk-in door. So at the end of the day, our house is much bigger than what we really need, because the whole house, like I was saying, how Tegan was placing items in the house, we had spots for all of our stuff in the house already, not anticipating we'd put anything underneath the house. So now we have extra storage upstairs. We have extra rooms. We have the mechanical room is now a pantry, right? So there's a lot of, we made it work, but we definitely could have saved a lot of money, gone smaller and stuff like that. But of course, by the time the foundation goes in and you start running these heights, it's already too late. Everything's been ordered and the house starts building. So no, it didn't go exactly how we thought it was going to, but it's almost better. And the added cost to increase the height from that 4 feet to 7 feet was
still
like
needed
a couple
the material
$1,000.
Of sheets that
it didn't
material.
cost a whole bunch more in that sense. It was just that we could have made the whole footprint of the house smaller potentially.
Yeah, but then at the cost of having to do new plans and then get them engineered again and get
stamping everything and
permits and stuff redone.
Yeah, that one.
What was the most exciting part of the project? For me, it was the finishing process, and I, started buying all these fixtures and things on sale and stuff. So piecing them together and finally putting them in the house and seeing how they all come together, and then finally getting all the trims, and it was just
the fluff. Nice. She liked the fluff. Once it got to the point where
becoming a home,
it became a home, not a house. That was her, exciting part. Which, I mean, for me, yeah, it's kind of exciting, but like, I'm very, I'm a visual thinker, so I could like look at that stuff and I could just.
No, you couldn't imagine
not
anything.
Colors. No, not colors. I can't imagine colors. I'm not a color guy, but physical items, imagining them in physical space, I can do that all day. But to decide colors, Tegan decide colors because my brain thinks in black and white. I guess I'm so focused on how it'll fit, not the colors of it, but makes for a good team. For me, the exciting part was once the main framing was up and, the first, like the floor goes in and then the second story goes in and the walls are up and the roof got sheeted and you could just stand back and yeah, it looked exactly like Tegan's drawings. And that was kind of like the point where it was like, this is really happening. It's actually going to be our house when it's all said and done. And that was, I think, when the excitement was at its highest. Because everything at that point, we were just on this upswing of stuff being done. Rough framing goes pretty fast. So it was definitely an exciting time for me. Tegan she was already thinking about the finishing stuff at that point. There was a long ways to go. Which then this brings us to the next question, which is...
What was the most stressful part of the project?
Yep.
And for me, it was working with this guy.
Because?
Because he was very...
supposedly bossy. I was bossing her around.
And he didn't even know what he was doing. So it was...
Well, yes. There's a lot of stuff where I'm a perfectionist and I wanted our house obviously to be built perfectly, so the things that we were doing ourselves, I wanted it done perfectly. And a lot of this stuff we're learning on the go, right? Lots of watching YouTube videos, referencing YouTube videos to other YouTube videos to make sure that you're getting the same information from multiple sources. So it's not just one guy saying do it this way and it's actually wrong. But then, like we were just talking about this as we were kind of coming up with our answers ahead of time, was when we were doing the poly vapor barrier in the house, and I'm kind of the one that's doing the work, so to speak, of putting, the acoustical sealant, sticking it up, stapling it, whatever. But Tegan was kind of my assistant in handing me the stapler, handing me, I need more acoustical sealant, which we had to put on the fireplace to keep it warm because it was freezing up. So there's a lot of times where it's like, like a surgeon, I'm, scalpel, I need this, and I'm just trying to roll as fast as I can and, trying to do it perfect as we go. And Tegan's kind of getting bored waiting for me for the next thing that I need. So she puts everything down. She's in the other room. I turn around. I need it. I'm frustrated because then I need her to pass it to me because I'm up on the ladder holding the poly over my head and I need the stapler now. And so there's things like that. So yes, definitely there was stress. For me, the biggest stress was definitely I acted as the general contractor for the project. And I would have to leave work every day, end of the day, come to the house, and then it was essentially my responsibility to go through the entire house of whatever trade was there that day and double check their work. So whether it was the electrical, plumbing, the framing stuff, later on finishing, drywall, kind of everything like that. So I had to keep going there every day, check on the whole project. We had goofy things like walls were framed in the wrong positions, doorways in the wrong position, wrong window framings, bumping plumbing stuff around, moving vents, and like there's things that were basically just like not followed to the plans, but then there was also things that we couldn't even plan for, right? Like running a plumbing stack up and it goes right into a rafter. So it's like, okay, well, we have to bump that over. Well, now we have to move the whole wall of the bathroom over, which moves a closet and things like that. So for me, that was just so stressful because it was like what 2 years almost of just doing all that kind of stuff, and then getting materials. Like we sourced all the framing materials ourselves, so it was just every day. Okay, what do you guys need? Are you short? Do you have extra? What other stuff do you need? So all that kind of stuff was very, very, very high stress, and I understand why it costs so much to hire people to do that. What is something that exceeded our expectations? So what exceeded your expectations?
How the fireplace around all turned out. I mean, when we were first planning it, we knew we wanted to go with wood on the top because of its height and lots of, there'd be lots of stone work to really bring up the price.
Way too expensive.
But we wanted it to be wood, just something different, and it was going to be a lot closer to the wall, but with the trusses, having the overhang on that side, you could have room to have the chimney go right up the center peak of the roof. So we brought it out and then had to build in built-in spots for firewood and stuff there instead and stuff. So it was kind of changed from the drawings too, I guess. And then
minor change. It was
we built it when we were both sick with COVID. We did the tall framing and put up tall.
About that. Up on the scaffolding, just dizzy because we have COVID and like we're just so
how it all
sick.
Turned out, and with the colors of the wood and the rocks on the bottom, we chose
the stone that nice Todd did the stone for us and the tile, and that turned out beautiful. And
so I mean, we don't get to use right now in the fall time. We use the fireplace inside, but we don't get to use it really any other time of the year because it's either too hot from just being summer and stuff, or the winter with our wood boiler, it doesn't. Don't need that extra heat.
Yeah, the inside fireplace, that's for appearance, and then it's also has a high enough BTU rating that if everything fails in the house, we can at least light that fire and it'll warm the house up. It's rated for about 2,000 square foot. And then in the spring and fall, when it's not consistently cold enough to light the boiler, then we can use the fireplace inside, and it basically
the
makes
dogs really like it.
Yeah, the puppies love it. They were just laying next to it last night again because it's getting cold up here in Canada. It's what is the date today? We are November 30th, so it's pretty chilly. We're overlooking a lake here. I'll get some video after, and it's just steaming. There's one little open spot in the middle, and it's just steaming off. It's probably about -12, -15 Celsius. So isn't that cool? See all steam coming off of it out there. Anyone want to go for a polar bear plunge? See, most of the lake is frozen. Snowing a bit again. Beautiful though. Not gonna be much longer, and that lake's gonna be frozen right over. Next question: what did not meet our expectations? No, I didn't even do what exceeded my expectation. What exceeded my expectations was the wood boiler and how efficient it is. So like I was saying with the fireplace, that we can't burn it at the same time as we have the boiler going. So this will be our second winter now. It uses hardly any firewood. Like it uses less firewood to run the house all the time. So last winter wasn't a very cold winter, but even at that, because it can choke itself right out and just smolder, and then the fan will blow on it to rev it back up when we need the heat. Super efficient. I fill it once in the morning and I fill it once at night, and that's it. And I've pushed it for almost 20 hours at some points before adding more wood into it. So that definitely exceeded my expectations.
And something that did not meet expectations. For me, we went with the higher end, but not like the premium vinyl plank flooring with the clip system and stuff. And I mean, just from our heating and stuff, having it, the sun on it and stuff, it's starting to get kind of, the joints and stuff are starting to get, but it's not like getting... Yeah,
it's separating.
Cracky too much or anything.
Yeah, so. It's not separating on the long edges.
Yeah. We had made sure to leave it from the sides of the wall to let it,
have room to expand and contract.
But
and that's kind of, it just seems like vinyl plank, it's going to separate.
Yeah, even like glued down vinyl plank, we've seen how it shrinks and stuff, and it just doesn't expand back, I guess, so.
Yeah.
It has a good though scratch resistant for
Durability,
2 puppies running in circles on it, so we're happy
Yeah, the
with
puppies.
that.
Yeah,
Also,
they
the color
claw the
hides
heck out of
dirt
it.
really well, so
Yeah, it almost hides dirt too well. Because then we go to wash the floor, and it's like, oh my goodness, it's really, really dirty. So what did not meet my expectations? For me, it was the drywall. So I'm a perfectionist. I like everything perfect, as perfect as it can possibly be, smooth, nice, whatever. Drywall just isn't that.
I used to be a perfectionist, and then we started building the house, and levels have reduced. But
because there's, especially when you're doing stuff yourself, then you can really see like how difficult certain things are, and then you understand how like you have to at some point, it's as good as you can possibly get it, right? Especially if it's a material problem like bent boards or whatever, unless you just grab a hold of the board. But for the drywall side of it, it's just, there's spots where you can see it waves over the studs, or you had proud studs that are sticking out, ones that are sitting in, screw pops, things moving, shifting, just things like that. Like it just, I notice all these things, and I guess because it's, my own house and I've been looking at it right from day one, I notice these things, but I'm noticing it less and less every day. More stuff goes on the walls and decorations and other things and whatever, but that's definitely something that, I'm a perfectionist, and drywall just can't be perfect. So,
and I mean, with our 2 puppies, they've done a number on the drywall with some scratches of jumping and the wrestling and stuff. So,
yep.
Glad we went with white paint because you don't notice the
drywall when it gets chipped off. Yeah, paint gets chipped off. So we'll skip down to that one then. So that was one of our. That's 2 questions down. Is what has already broken or been damaged in the house, and the main one we had was the drywall from the dogs bouncing into it and their collars bump it and scratch it and stuff like that. When they were really little puppies, they chewed some of the baseboard because of course it's nice pine wood. And then outside on the one deck that faces the pond, when that went in, we put the whole deck at a slight slope down towards the pond, and then we put a weather and ice or ice and water membrane across the underside of the deck to make below the deck kind of like a shed. And the idea was that the water would go through the decking boards, run across the membrane, and then go down towards the pond. Well, we found last winter the water would go down, but then it froze, and we had freeze thaw cycles, and it would expand, and it was pushing some of the decking boards up and breaking the screws off and twisting some of the boards. So we cut it all out this fall, and now it's just a regular old deck. Nothing crazy about it, but we have some other ideas to make it waterproof down there, just so we can put storage underneath there, but nothing crazy. But other than that, everything's been pretty good. Oh, this is the one we skipped. What has been the biggest change moving from on-grid to off-grid?
I mean, you get used to it, but I mean, we have the automatic generator, so it turns on, and with our batteries, it does a longer cycle to make sure it's charging it slowly to, make the batteries last longer. So it's a constant buzz in the background, but
yeah, when it kicks on.
Besides the cats not getting used to it, we've gotten used to it.
Yeah, the cats aren't a fan of it. It turns on and they scatter. But yeah, the generator kicks on when the batteries die, and it runs for about 4 to 6 hours, depending on if there's any light input from the panels. For me, the biggest change of going to an off-grid was the solar side of it, and me being responsible for tracking, maintaining, constantly watching that, how much output are we, drawing from the house, what's coming in from the panels, the generator kicking on, just all that kind of stuff. And I'm just always tracking it, partially because it generally interests me, but that's definitely a change. A lot of people think that the firewood aspect would be the big change for me, but I grew up in a log home that had primary fire heat, so hauling in firewood all winter and burning it, that's no different to me. It was a bit of a change for Tegan, but I grew up with it, so it doesn't really affect me too much. That brings us basically to our next one, which is, has the solar system worked as expected. Again, yes and no. If there's sun, because we have so much panel, we have basically unlimited power. Like, we ran the AC all summer. We had everything running all summer. Spring, summer, fall, basically. And the generator kicked on once, I think, or maybe twice. And that was when we had like gloomy, cloudy weather for days and days and days on end. And then eventually,
rainstorms.
Yeah, rainstorms. And then eventually the battery, even charging during the day a bit, it just worked its way down to the 50% cutoff and then charged up again. Once we get into like this time of year, we've had, like, today it's finally sunny, but we had probably 4 weeks in a row now with zero sun, just gloomy, cloudy, overcast, freezing rain, snow, just junk weather. So the generator has almost run every single day to charge up the batteries, because our batteries, with no input of solar, so just running the house off the batteries, we get about 12 hours of runtime. So the generator basically was kicking on every 12 hours, or has been, to top up the batteries, that top 50%. And we just go to 50 just because then that way you save the batteries for a longer period of time. So yeah, yes and no. We want to upgrade to the lithium batteries, which then have their own computer built into the battery, which then talks to the control system for the solar. So then it can run more efficiently and you can get a little bit more power out of the battery. In the same space, same form factor, we could have basically double the amount of battery capacity, so you can go twice as long. But that being said, then the generator runs twice as long to charge them. So it's kind of a trade-off, right? What you want to do there. All in all, pretty happy with the solar system.
Yeah, we'll have to, last winter was our first winter, so it was we had the batteries not fully set either, so it was a big headache. So
getting everything
this
dialed
winter
in.
is a lot better.
One thing that is, two things with the solar system. One is occasionally certain lights in the house, because we have all LEDs.
Yeah.
Some of them will start to flicker, especially ones that are on dimmer switches. If you're at a certain point in the dimness, then they glitch out and they'll flash. So you just have to, shut it off, change brightness, turn it back on. It's good. The other thing is anything with a clock that plugs into the wall goes into the future. I guess the frequency of the power is different. It's not running perfectly at 60 hertz or whatever it is. So it advances in time. So like the clock on our oven is always stepping forward into the future.
We've started to use our phones for alarm clocks.
Yeah, alarm clocks on our phones.
Waking up way
earlier
too early.
and earlier and earlier. And we're trying to figure out, like, why does it seem so early? And you look at your phone, it's like, we're now a half hour ahead of time. So yeah, so that's a goofy thing. And I think that there's settings to adjust the solar to compensate for that, but it doesn't bug me enough to care. We just don't look at the clocks like that. Just use our phone. Easy solution. All right, next question. Now we get into the real meat and potatoes of what people ask us about. What is our cost of living? So now that we are off grid, which generally is cheaper than living on grid, what is our cost of living? So to break it down, we have Starlink internet, because we can't run internet because we have no line to run the internet in on. Underground's not an option because we're all rock.
And the other satellite internet.
Yeah, all the other stuff sucks. So Starlink, which we love it, works great. That's about $160 a month. This is all Canadian numbers too. Our cell phones is about $200 a month. Our propane, so the propane runs the backup generator, the hot water heater, the laundry dryer, and the stove and oven. So a whole bunch of propane stuff. That works out to about $3,000 a year, which, if you consider that to what a power bill would be and a gas bill for heating and stuff if you're in a city, talking to a lot of people, it's about comparable. And that's a whole year, right? $3,000 for the whole year. So it breaks up not too bad. Our water, so we have fresh water delivered to us. There's a local guy in town, name's Matt, super cool guy. He brings us in a big, huge truck. He brings 1,000 gallons at a time, which is, I think, almost 5 of those little 4-foot cube totes that, I could move with my truck. So he does it in like 3 minutes, and it costs us $130. And that's about a tank a month. So about 1,000 gallons every month. And then the sewer side of it, we have no septic field, so all of our sewer gets pumped. That we get about a month and a half between the pump outs, and that's about $250 a pump out. Insurance on our house is $1,750, so not too crazy. My parents' log house we were just looking at the other day is insane because every insurance company hates log houses, so they're more than double what our house is, and their house is valued way less than our house. So I don't know how that works. Taxes for our house, we actually don't know yet, because with a new build in the area that we're in one of the lowest tax areas that you can possibly be. And they're so far behind on looking at new builds and updating the tax stuff that we haven't in our whole year now, right? Because it's been a year that the house has been done, and they still haven't come to look at it. I keep talking to the guy on the phone. He's like, yeah, I'll get there when I get there. So I don't know what that's going to mean, but I don't expect it to be a whole lot. The 92 acres that we have, so just the land itself, that I think is about $300 a year. So super cheap for taxes. How much did it cost for us to build off-grid? So compared to normal home, the difference in price to be off-grid. So the solar system, all said and done, panels, batteries, control unit, wiring, all that was $58,000. So that was whole shebang, everything delivered and installed, labor, materials, you name it. The wood boiler was $20,000. So definitely on the high end for a wood boiler, but it's essentially the most high-end wood boiler that you can get, which, because this is, the house that we plan on dying in, essentially.
Yeah,
we figured we
didn't want to have to do
Replace
lots of labor of getting more firewood and stuff. So
So the gasification unit is designed to just burn way less firewood in general. The backup generator was about $10,000. Wayne installed it for us. So with the installation stuff, it was about 10 grand. We ran gas appliances to save on how much power we use. Gas appliances are pretty much the same price as an electric appliance, other than the propane hot water heater. Propane hot water heater was about $4,000 just for that hot water heater, because they have a different type of gas system compared to natural gas. Most stuff is just a natural gas unit, and then you buy a conversion kit for propane. You can't do it with hot water heater. Don't know why. And that's an actual tank, not a inline hot water heater, because with our wood boiler heating our hot water, you can't do an inline. So our tank has to, constantly be circulating with hot water, and yada, yada, yada. At the end of the day, though, realistically, we were already planning on doing a backup generator, and we were already planning on doing a wood boiler. So the appliances are pretty much the same. So we have the $58,000 for the solar, and then we have the say $2,500 extra for a propane hot water heater. Other than that, the rest of the house is same price as any other house to build. So it is more, but we're going to get into our reasoning for that, which is, next question.
Why did we choose to build off-grid?
So we didn't really choose to build off-grid. A lot of people assume that we're like super hippies or something, because, as soon as someone hears off-grid, they just think that you don't shower and you have dreadlocks or something. And, we like to consider ourselves fairly normal people, somewhat normal, I guess. But what it came down to was, I already had this property I bought, vacant land, and there's the nice pond on it, the horseshoe pond as we call it. And we really wanted to build overlooking the pond, and it puts us just over one big ridge from the highway, so you don't get the highway sounds. Nice and secluded, nice, solid bedrock to build on. to get power from the grid to us, I had pricing for that, and this is now years ago, because I was going to get power put in way before.
Ago.
Yeah, I was going to have power put in before we even started building the house, because I had a camper there. I was going to run to the camper. So just for the 6 poles that it would take, and then the temporary service hookup and transformer, it was going to be $86,000 just for that. Then the utility company required that I myself, as the property owner, had to do a 60-meter wide power line right from where the house was going to be, right through the woods to the highway, which kind of defeats the purpose of being there, away from the highway. I had to pay to have it all cleared, and I would have to pay to have that maintained or maintain it myself, which that's a lot of trees and brush to cut every year pretty much, or every couple of years.
That we didn't want to cut in the first place.
Yeah, we didn't want to cut it in the first place. And then the real killer was anywhere that they said one of their poles was going to go, I had to build a road to that pole, whether it was on the top of a rock ridge or the bottom of a swamp. I either had to fill the swamp to make a road to it, or make a road all the way around onto the ridge to get to it, so that they could show up in a car and inspect their pole and make sure that their pole and their lines were still in good condition. And I would have to continue to maintain that, as well as maintain the power line, and I'd be getting a bill from them for power every month. So we were kind of forced into it, where suddenly the $60,000, let's say it, to go solar is way cheaper than the, whatever, almost $250,000 that it was going to be in total, plus having a power bill every month to do on grid.
And we'd need the backup generator, because where we have it is, there's a big chance that the power goes out when there's a storm. So.
Yeah, every time there's a storm, we lose power. The town next to us is like always out of power, and sometimes it's days and days and days at a time. So, I know at my parents, they're just down the road from us, and there's been times where we're hauling multiple generators to their house to run freezers and heat or whatever it is that they need. And then multiple small generators, so we just got one big backup generator, and it's all automatic, so it's kind of the way to go nowadays. So that's how we ended up off grid. We didn't really plan on it. It was just, from a cost perspective, made more sense. Next question: how much money did we save by doing portions of the work on the house ourselves? So, as general contractor myself, so I was the one that more or less managed, when everyone was going to come in and get their portions of the job done, and like I said, doing inspections and making sure that things were all done right, and sourcing materials, getting materials delivered, all that kind of stuff. So that we're a little conservative on that, but we say that it saved us about $20,000 on labor of having a contractor. They would have markups too as well. Like a lot of times on materials, they'll mark up materials too. So it's probably well over $20,000 that we saved. Our fireplace, so the actual unit, the chimney, and then doing all the surround and everything. So all the wood portion we did ourselves. That we figure we saved about $50,000 in terms of materials and labor, just because doing fireplaces is one of those things where it's a centerpiece, so it always costs a ton of money to have people do it, because it needs to be perfect, right? Because you're looking at
and with the height of ours to 20 feet to the peak there,
it's extremely tall.
A lot of pain to go up and down to finish it.
Yeah. So, and I mean, talking to family friends of ours that do home builds all the time, they just automatically quote like $80,000. If you're doing a nice fireplace like ours, they just add $80,000 to your quote, and that more or less will cover the expense at the end of the day. And we did it for way less. Like it cost us we were trying to guess, maybe like 10 grand, 12 grand, all materials and fireplace. And
lumber, and then finishing the stuff ourselves.
Yeah, so it saved us tons. Next big one, the indoor railings. So we have all the pine railing up on the second story that overlooks the living room. So Tegan ordered in the custom 4x4 pine posts from a mill. Those were like a few $100. The spindles, we ripped 2x4s, 2x6s, 2x12s, whatever we had left over. We cut them into the 1.5 by 1.5 squares. I bought the head to actually make them into a dowel on the end, and we did all that kind of stuff. So
sanded 5 billion.
Sanded and coats of stain and all that kind of stuff. So in the material and labor for that, it saved us about $80,000, which is insane. But when you look at how many hours it takes to do that, regardless of who's doing it, the labor is the killer. Like, yeah, it easily saved us $80,000 just in the weeks and weeks and weeks that it took to get all that stuff. Especially like Tegan had to hand sand every one of those dowels and the railing and stuff like that. The dowels themselves, I spent, I think, 3-4 days in total, like long, probably 12-hour days between cutting them to length, ripping them to size, and then at that point we had rejects that were no good because they were too bent. Then putting them through, basically clamping them, running the dowel head on it. Then from that we had rejects, so I had to do so many extra because working with pine is not the easiest wood to work with because it'll warp and bend and whatever. So saved us a ton of money doing that ourselves. Definitely was worthwhile.
And we liked the way it turned out.
Yeah, we really liked the railing. It makes the whole living room between that and the fireplace and the high ceiling. Next one, flooring. So we did all the flooring ourselves. We sourced it for very, very good price from, is it Lowe's?
Mm-hmm.
Lowe's we got it from. And we bought 2 full skids of it. And I think it was like, 50% off or something? It was like 50 or 60% off.
It wasn't that cheap, but
it still saved us a bunch of money from what it was. But then the labor side of it, putting it ourselves. So Brennan had come and helped us. He helped with a massive amount of the project. So he had done that type of flooring before. We bought the chopper for it. And yeah, in that first day, the 4 of us, we hammered out like almost 2/3 of the main floor. And then Tegan did the stuff upstairs herself. So, I mean, that saved us, we figured, easily about $6,000 in labor, having a company come in and do all that kind of stuff. Oh, and Brennan did the sand and vac for us. So he's got the machine to do the sand and vac on all the joints. So he's super cool. Did that on his own time for us. So that was fantastic. Trims and finishing work. We figured that saved about $10,000 in labor. Kitchen cabinets. We did all IKEA. Tegan and my mom put all together. We figured that saved about $50,000 compared to hiring a company that puts in basically the same quality of stuff. So all that compressed board, garbage, whatever, is cheap. Difference is Tegan and my mom put it all together and installed it. So like, yeah, the quotes to get our kitchen done was anywhere from $80,000 to $100,000, and that was just basic countertop, basic white everything, like nothing fancy. So to do it ourselves for like whatever, it was like under 10 grand with countertops. So totally worthwhile doing that one. And then doing the outdoor decks, stairs, railings, all that kind of stuff. We did ourselves there. That saved us about $50,000 materials, labor, buying stuff when it was on sale type of thing. And, doing it in stages really helped, right? Doing it when we can, when we had the money and yada, yada, yada. So that saved us quite a bit too. So at the end of the day, the more you can do yourself, the more you save money, because labor is so expensive nowadays, like outrageously expensive, that if you can do even an hour of labor yourself free, right, other than what your time is worth to you, you're saving tons of money, like a massive amount of money. So I'd recommend, if you're going to build a house, do what you can as much as you can. Next one. So would we ever do it again? Would we ever build another house? And if we did, what would we do differently? She's shaking her head no. yeah, we would not do what we did again.
It's too much stress, too much decisions, too expensive.
Too expensive, too much chasing people and getting stuff done and
And we love where
planning.
we are, so we won't want to build anywhere else.
No, we don't want to go anywhere else. But yeah, we would. We had talked about it before. Like I've said to some people, if I had to do it again, I would just get a foundation made, get a really nice quality ready built home, get it moved, dropped on the foundation, and then just pick away at the finishing stuff myself. So then it's more or less the same stuff that we did ourselves to finish, right? So you can still make it nice and pretty and do what you want, but the bulk of it and the bulk of the stress and all that kind of stuff is just done. Like they slap the house down. It's pretty much instant, and then you just do your finishing stuff and away you go, work on landscaping, whatever after. But yeah, way too expensive to do it the way that we did it, even with how much we saved. The other thing we said was, if we won $1 million, well, you need more than $1 million. Won umpteen millions of dollars nowadays, and you could just hire like a super ultra high-end general contracting, architectural engineering company, whatever, and you just say, this is what we want, and there's, price isn't an issue, and they just build it, and you can just walk through it at any point and just go, nope, don't like that, fix it, don't like that, fix it, don't like that, fix it, and you just, throw money at the problem, it fixes itself, and then boom, you end up with, multi-million-dollar mansion or something. Yeah, maybe that wouldn't be so bad, but for the so-called average Joe, it's brutal. And then the last question here is basically, how much did the whole build cost? The whole thing? Too much. It was way too much. We did it just after COVID. Prices were starting to come down, but we were looking at what our combined wages were compared to the price of materials, and price of materials was still climbing so fast that we could not save enough money to offset the amount that the materials were climbing. So we just jumped on it, and it was a good thing we did, because the materials did continue to climb, so it would be even more expensive nowadays to do it. But yeah, like I said, even with a square footprint or a square footage of it being bigger, right, that cost us more, but we could have saved whatever. Yeah, end of the day, cost us too much. We wouldn't do it again. We love it, but wouldn't do it again. And we listed down what did it cost us. It cost us our souls, our kidneys, and our grandkids' inheritance. so yeah, but we got it now. Now it's just maintaining it, fixing the walls and stuff from the puppies. At some point, there's going to be solar upgrades, right? Because that's just an inherent thing with solar. Which to touch on that, they say the panels should be good for about 10 to 15 years. The battery should be good for about 8 years-ish. The solar inverter should be good for over 10 years. Backup generator depends on how many hours it runs, but that should be good for a long, long time too. Many hours of runtime.
I mean, lots of stuff is maintenance. You do maintenance, it
doesn't matter what house you have, you can
makes
have
it
maintenance,
longer.
right?
Yeah.
But yeah, that's about it. If you guys have any other questions, you can drop them in the comments below, and we might be able to answer some of those too. But that's it. So that summarizes basically a year of being in our off-grid dream home, our 2,300 square foot off-grid dream home. And it is our dream home. We do love it, but we would never do it again. No, not a chance. Couldn't pay me to do it again.
We somehow survived.
We survived. We didn't kill each other either. Like Tegan was saying, touched on the stress side of it. And obviously, like, we weren't married at that point. We just got married like a couple months ago. And kind of the joke was that if we could survive building the house together, then we can survive anything together. And yeah, there was many nights that either I just got in my truck and left because I was so mad, or Tegan got in her car and left because she was so mad, or whatever. And at the end of the day, we were both always mad at the house, not at each other. So we always made it work.
I mean, a big portion of trying to do stuff after work when it's dark in the house
pitch
and
black,
it's cold.
freezing cold. There was no heat in the house. You're trying to get stuff.
It's really hard.
Yeah, no lights. You're running the generator. Generator won't start outside, and I'm stressed out from work coming there. Tegan's stressed out from work coming there, and it was the scheduling that we had too was insane. Like we were leaving because we lived in the next town over, so we would leave from that town, and I had 20-minute drive to work, which is in the town that we live in now, and I worked from 7:30 in the morning till anywhere between 4:30 and 10 o'clock at night whenever I got off. Tegan had a 45-minute or an hour-long drive to work at that point because she had to go all around to a different town, which is even further. And so she was leaving super early. She does, 8 to 4:30. So she would be back to work on the house usually before I was. She'd get there like 20 after 5, 5:30ish, something like that. So then straight there, she'd start hammering away at stuff. I'd get off work, come straight there, start hammering away at stuff. We'd work till usually about 11 o'clock at night. Then get in our vehicles, drive back to the next town over again, so 20 minutes back. Then we would, put away our stuff from work, make dinner, eat, shower, do whatever house chores we had and stuff like that, go to bed, and then we were up again at like 5 a.m. the next morning, right? So we were only getting like 4 or 5 hours of sleep, and you figure it was like a year and a half of this, right? Of just every single day. And, there was just so much on the go at that time. I had my hernia as well. So I was in pain like for a year. I was in tons of pain because my whole stomach had ripped open basically, and I didn't have time to go in and get surgery. So then you have that in there too, trying to hold everything in as you're lifting heavy stuff, and they tell you not to lift. And we made it work though. But I think that's it. Like I said, any other questions, drop them down below. Like, comment, subscribe, check out some of our build videos. We got the whole thing. We got right from bedrock up to smoke out of the chimney and everything in between there. So if there's something that you guys want to specifically see from within the property or the off-grid house or anything like that, let us know, and we can get a video like that done up for you guys. But other than that, thanks for watching 80 Acres, and we'll see you guys next time.
Next morning, lake frozen. Boom. All frozen. Look at that sun too. Just blinded in here.